Hello everybody, it's Mr. Mulvihill here. Hope you guys had a good weekend. We got some notes for today, just a page, and then you guys have a page assignment, 3 questions, and you guys will be good to go. Alright, so let's look right here. If the domain of the function f of x equals 2x plus 4 is 0, 2, 6, 7, what is the range? Well, what do we know about this question? Well, we know that the domain are the x numbers. So if those are the x numbers, and this is the domain right here, then to figure out the range, which is just the y numbers, we're just going to have to plug each of those numbers into the function right there. So on a scrap piece of paper for exercise 1, let's go ahead and write this stuff down. So the first x is 0, so f of 0. Well, let's plug in 0 for x right there. Plug in 0 for x, and you simply evaluate it out. So 2 times 0 plus 4 is 4. So f of 0 equals 4. So that's one number in the range for sure. We know that. F of 2. If you plug in 2 for x, 2 times the 2 for x there, plus 4 equals 8. So f of 2 equals 8. That's another number in our range. And then if you were to find f of 6, if you plug in 6 for x, you should get, well, do that yourself. See what you get. Pause the video. You get 16. And then f of 7, you should get 18. So these were all the numbers we got out. These were all of our outputs. They were all of our y numbers. They're our range numbers. So our range is going to be, in order from smallest to largest, 4, 8, 16, 18. All right. Second one. Given the function y equals f of x, defined by the graph below, answer the following questions. So this is the graph of f of x. We're not sure exactly what it equals. Just it's f of x. So find the value of each of the following. F of 4. Well, how do we find f of 4 without an equation? Well, if you remember, this is the x number. So if the x number is 4, we'll just go to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 on our graph. And so we're going to be somewhere along here. Now we're just going to go up till we hit a point. We hit a point right there. And what y value is that? That is a y value of 1. So f of 4 equals 1. F of negative 1. Well, f of negative 1 is right here, negative 1. So you can go up until you hit a point right there. And what y value is that? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So f of negative 1 is 6. All right. That should be a review again. But now this question's a little bit different here. For what values of x does f of x equal negative 2? Illustrate on the graph. So, what's different here? We're not sure what x is. X is a question mark. But we do know what this number is. And these are your y values, right? So y equals negative 2. So if y equals negative 2, what is the x that goes with it? Well, let's find negative 2 for our y. So there's 0, negative 1, negative 2. So we're going to be on this horizontal line. And it looks like if we come over, we hit a point here. And we also would hit a point right there, too. So negative 2 happens twice on our graph. It happens when x equals 1 and x equals 3. There we go. Definitely a little bit tricky. Just keep in mind that this number out here is really your y, so y equals negative 3. Go ahead and see if you can find what the x is when y is negative 3. So you should get x equals 2. Because when x is 2, zoom down here, you get to that -3 value that you're looking for. All right. Question D here. State the minimum and maximum values of the function. The minimum values, well, think about it. Minimum, that's the lowest. So where is the lowest on the graph? That would be, I'm doing blue for low, right there. So what y value is that? Min, y equals -3. And the max, where is it the tallest on the graph? The tallest point on the graph is right here and right here. Now they both have the same y value, so we'll just write it once. But the max value is y equals 6. Why is it y equals? Because the y is 6 here. The x might be 5 or -1, but the y is 6. That's what measures up and down. Okay, last exercise here for the for your assignment. Note the three functions represented below. F of x equals 5 plus 3x. G of x is the graph, and h of x is represented by the table. For A through D, fill in the correct symbol that accurately compares the two functions. All right, so this is a little weird, but you'll get the hang of it. F of -1 and g of -1. Well, if we're going to compare which one's bigger and which one's smaller, it's smart to find what they actually come out to be, what their y values are. So f of -1, let's plug in -1 for x right here, really. 5 plus 3 times -1. And what do we get? Well, we get 5 minus 3, which equals 2. So we know that this is 2. And g of -1, well, how do we evaluate that on a graph? Well, we're going to go to, that's our x equals -1. So if we go to -1 and we go up, we're going to hit 5. So that value is 5. So we know that f of -1 is less than g of -1. All right. B here, f of -2, h of -1. Well, same idea. F of -2, you plug in -2 for x into your equation right here. So you're going to get 5 plus 3 times -2, which is 5 minus 6, which is -1. So this y value is -1. And h of -1, well, again, that's your x equals. So x equals -1. And when x equals -1, what does h of x equal? What does your y equal? It equals 2. So we have f of -2 is going to be less than h of -1. All right, why don't you guys try C and D, and then resume the video to see what you get. Pause the video first, I guess. G of 0. So G of 0, if you look on our graph, 0 is right here. You go up to where you hit a point. You hit a point right there. So that's G of 0 is going to equal 3. H of 0, if you look at your table, H of 0, your y is 6. So we're going to have G of 0 is less than H of 0. And then f of -1, h of -1. Well, we already figured out f of -1 from question A. We know that f of -1 is 2. H of -1, oh, we already figured that one out too. It's also 2. So these are going to be equal to each other. F of -1 equals h of -1. And then final one here. For what value of x does g of x equal h of x? Ooh, this is tricky here. We have to find where they're both going to equal out to each other when you plug in the same x number. So, for example, here, if you look at C, when we plugged in 0 for both of these functions, we got 3 and 6. They weren't the same. We want to find the x number that will create the same y value when we plug in the same x number. So this is just kind of guess and check here. Let's start with h, because h is only a certain amount of values that it can possibly be. So h of -3, well, that's going to be -7. And then g of -3, well, g of -3 is right there. That's going to be +5. So it's not going to be -3. If you're looking up here, the next one we can try is -1. So h of -1 is going to be 2, and g of -1 is going to be 5, so it's not -1. Try 0. If we try 0, well, h of 0 is going to be 6, looking at the table, and then g of 0 is going to be 3. Those also don't equal each other, so let's really hope it's 3 here. H of 3, well, based on the chart, it's going to equal -1, because that's our x number, the 3 is. And g of x, when 3 is right here, so you hit the point right there, and that is -1. So they're both equal to each other when x equals 3. They both have a y value -1. All right, that's all I got for today, guys, and tomorrow. So just work on this assignment. Shoot me any questions if you got any. Join our Google Meet tomorrow, our optional Google Meet, and we'll take it from there. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.